A 16-year-old girl vanished inside a sealed psychiatric hospital. Her friends were just steps away, but she was never seen again. For over a decade, no one could explain how Kaylee Summers ended up marked as Patient 23, Voluntary, on a form no one remembered writing, sealed in a morgue no one had access to. But then, a hidden chamber was opened, and inside lay the one thing her mother never stopped searching for: proof. This is the story of what was buried, who buried it, and how silence was finally forced to speak. On July 12, 2012, at exactly 6:47 p.m., 16-year-old Kaylee Summers was last seen alive. The sun was beginning to sink behind the western ridge of the Green Valley State Preserve, a dense patch of forest surrounding the ruins of St. Elora Psychiatric Hospital, located just outside Wadsworth, Maine. The weather was humid, the temperature steady at 82 degrees. Her phone's GPS ping, later recovered from triangulated tower data, placed her final known position at 45.12 degrees N, 69,3834 degrees W, approximately 3 miles down a deteriorating gravel trail that veered from Route 16 and disappeared into the undergrowth. Kaylee wasn't alone. She had come with 3 others: her cousin Danny, her longtime friend Jace, and a boy named Troy, whom she'd met at a local skate park just weeks earlier. The group had planned the trip as a kind of dare, to explore the abandoned hospital before its rumored demolition. St. Elora had been closed since 1999 after budget cuts and allegations of abuse. Since then, it had become the subject of local legend: whispers of lost patients, vanished staff, and unmarked wings sealed off since the 1980s. No guards, no cameras, no barriers, except the ones nature had grown back over the years. They entered the structure through a collapsed fire escape on the west side. Once inside, Kaylee wandered ahead, fascinated by the decay. She filmed short videos, narrated with teasing commentary. In one, she walks past a broken gurney and whispers, "This place smells like mold and ghosts." That voice note, automatically backed up to her cloud, would later become the final known recording of her voice. At 6:52 p.m., Danny realized Kaylee was no longer with them. She had been trailing behind, taking photos. No one heard a scream. No one saw her run off. They assumed at first that she was hiding, playing a prank. For 15 minutes they searched the surrounding rooms, calling her name. The laughter that had filled the earlier part of their trip faded into nervous silence. "Kaylee, come on, this isn't funny, seriously." By 7:18 p.m., they had checked all 3 accessible floors of the West Wing, including a partially collapsed stairwell and the flooded lower-level hallway. Still nothing. At 7:31 p.m., Jace called 911. 911 call transcript July 12, 2012, 7:31 p.m., EST Wadsworth Regional Dispatch, file B121712. Dispatch 911, what's your emergency? Jace, M. Hi, we're at the old Elora Hospital. My friend, she's missing. We've looked everywhere. Dispatch, you said Elora Psychiatric. That site is condemned. Jace, yeah, I know. We were just exploring. She was right behind us and she's gone. We can't find her. Dispatch, how old is she? Jace, 16. Her name's Kaylee Summers. Dispatch, when's the last time you saw her? Jace, like 40 minutes ago, I think. She was taking pictures. Then, she was just gone. Dispatch, officers are en route. Do not leave the premises. The first patrol unit arrived at 7:54 p.m. Officer Elaine Porter and Deputy Richmond began their initial sweep with tactical flashlights, carefully navigating debris-covered floors and graffiti-tagged hallways. There were hazards everywhere: collapsed ceiling tiles, live mold, sharp rusted corners, but no sign of Kaylee. What they did find was her phone. It was lying face down on a landing near the old surgical wing, the screen cracked, battery drained. Digital forensics would later confirm that the last photo taken was time-stamped at 6:48:32 p.m. The image was blurry, but legible, a metal sign above a steel door that read, "Morgue, authorized staff only." That door, investigators noted, had been bolted shut for over a decade. No visible tampering, no way in or out. At 8:15 p.m., Officer Porter radioed the first official status update. Female juvenile, missing, premises unsafe, requesting full ground unit and canine search. Possible entry into restricted sector. Floodlights were set up outside the hospital by 9 p.m. Additional officers and volunteer responders arrived within the hour. They began a systematic room-to-room search, starting on the main floor, then moving upward. K9 units swept the corridors. No scent trail, no drag marks, no torn fabric, only silence. At 1:03 a.m., Kaylee's mother, Angela Summers, arrived on site. She was pale and visibly shaking. "She's scared of the dark," she told the officers. "She wouldn't just wander off. She wouldn't." By sunrise on July 13th, St. Elora had become an active crime scene. Orange fencing and warning signs surrounded the site. The media hadn't arrived yet, but the whispers had already begun. Kaylee Summers had walked into the hospital with 3 other people. She never walked out, and no one, not even the people who were with her, heard a single thing. In the critical first 48 hours following Kaylee Summers' disappearance, authorities initiated what would become one of the most logistically complex search efforts in rural Maine history. The operation began at 6 a.m. on July 13th, less than 12 hours after her last confirmed sighting inside St. Elora Psychiatric Hospital. By then, more than 20 officers, forensic technicians, and K9 handlers had joined the effort. Heat and humidity were rising quickly, topping 85-degree Mars by midday. With dense vegetation, unstable flooring, and near-zero visibility in sealed interior rooms, time was running against them. Search grids were drawn across the 36-acre hospital grounds. The interior was divided into 5 sectors: West Wing, Administration Hall, Surgical Annex, Subterranean Tunnel System, and Morgue. The morgue was off-limits for structural reasons, at least initially. 4 canines were cycled through the building in shifts, each trained in both cadaver and live scent detection. Deputy Richmond led the first sweep of the exterior tree line using a drone equipped with infrared. "We were hoping maybe she panicked and ran outside," he later told investigators. But there was nothing, just heat signatures from deer, rabbits, nothing human. A second team conducted a boot-by-boot grid search of the lower levels. On the sub-basement stairwell, they found a partial footprint in dried mud, small, narrow, left foot only, shoe size approximately 6.5. Investigators confirmed it matched Kaylee's style of shoe, but no matching right footprint was found. It led nowhere, just one print, then nothing. Meanwhile, inside the command tent, officers began interviewing the 3 teenagers who had been with her. Danny, her cousin, was still in shock. "We didn't even split up that long," she said. "She was just behind me. We didn't hear a scream. Nothing broke. It was like she dropped out of the air." Jace told a similar story, though with one added detail. "She was looking at this door, you know? The metal one with all the stickers that said restricted, near the surgical area. She joked that she wanted to open it and scare us. We said no. It looked sealed. That's the last thing I remember." Investigators reviewed the building's old architectural blueprints, stored in a county archive in Augusta. According to records, the morgue wing had been permanently closed in 2001 and sealed with industrial-grade welds and bolts from the outside. No maintenance staff had entered since. No renovation. No construction. There were no ventilation shafts, no rear exits, just one steel door, and it had not been opened in over a decade. Despite this, K9 units reacted strangely whenever they passed the corridor that led to the morgue entrance. One dog, named Finn, refused to proceed twice, whining and planting his paws. His handler logged the incident at 11:42 a.m., noting, "Animal distressed, non-compliant in specific hallway, possible air disturbance or residual odor source." Investigators made an urgent request for a forensic entry into the morgue wing, but structural engineers deemed the hallway too unstable to permit interior access without heavy equipment. That decision, later criticized, would delay entry into the morgue for years. Back at the hospital grounds by the evening of day 2, officers widened the search perimeter to a 2-mile radius. Volunteers from the surrounding counties began arriving in droves, forming line teams that swept through the surrounding woods and waterways. Still, no sign of Kaylee. At 7:15 p.m. on July 13th, Search and Rescue recorded an unusual radio call. "Echo Base, this is Unit 4. Found something. North Creek Bend. Copy? But it was a false alarm. A child's backpack, pink, waterlogged. Not Kaylee's. By nightfall, exhaustion set in. The command team gathered to reassess. They had no blood, no signs of struggle, no phone activity, no financial movement, and no indication of where Kaylee could have gone. Every minute without answers chipped away at hope. Sheriff Don Latham addressed the press at 9 p.m. "We are treating this as a high-priority missing person case with possible foul play. At this time, all individuals who were with Kaylee are cooperating fully. We urge anyone who was near Green Valley Preserve or the St. Elora grounds in the last 72 hours to contact our office." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "And if you have Kaylee, if this is a prank or a mistake, you need to come forward. Now." The press conference was broadcast regionally. Kaylee's photo, blonde hair, wide grin, gray zip-up hoodie, flashed on every screen in Maine that night. But no tips came in, no sightings, no confessions, no noise. Angela Summers issued her own plea the next morning. "If she's out there, if she's scared or trapped or hurt, please don't stop looking. Please, don't let her become a story people forget." The search would continue for weeks. But in those first 48 hours, when hope burned brightest, no breakthrough came. Just silence. Call to action. Comment. Hope, if you'd search forever. By July 14, 2012, the third day of Kaylee Summers' disappearance, the search effort expanded beyond the hospital's perimeter. With no evidence inside St. Elora pointing to an exit, authorities began to question the reliability of the physical environment itself. How could a 16-year-old vanish in a sealed building, with no one seeing her leave, no sounds, and no clues? At 9 a.m., Wadsworth Sheriff's Department requested aerial thermal imaging support from the Maine State Police. Within hours, a Bell 407 helicopter equipped with a FLIR Star Sapphire 3 infrared camera system was deployed. It swept the surrounding forest canopy, tracing heat signatures through the foliage at 400 feet altitude. Despite excellent visibility and warm ground temps, 87 degrees by mid-morning, the system found no trace of human activity beyond the known search teams. On the ground, the grid expanded to a 5-mile radius, incorporating 3 key terrain features: Black Hollow Creek to the south, an abandoned logging road to the east, and the cliffs at Owl Ridge to the north. More than 200 volunteers checked in over the course of the day. Many were locals who had never spoken to Kaylee, but felt drawn by the injustice of a teenager simply vanishing. Among them was Dan Briggs, a retired forest ranger. He'd brought his own thermal scope and a hand-drawn topographical map from 1995. "This place has caves under it," he told investigators. "Drainage tunnels, some collapsed. You won't see them on new maps, but if she fell into one, you'd never know from the surface." That possibility sparked a parallel investigation. A geological team from the University of Southern Maine was brought in to assess potential sinkholes or hidden voids around the structure. Ground-penetrating radar scans were scheduled, but couldn't begin until the following Monday. Meanwhile, back at St. Elora, forensic units continued reviewing physical evidence. No blood, no torn clothing, no fibers. The only notable trace remained the left shoe print found in dried mud 2 days earlier. At 2:26 p.m., Deputy Richmond located a silver bracelet wedged between 2 bricks in the stairwell leading to the boiler room. It bore no name, no inscription, but later testing confirmed Kaylee's fingerprints on the clasp. The bracelet wasn't visible in any of the photos she posted online that week, raising questions about when or even if she had been wearing it that day. The media caught on quickly. By evening, local newscasts were showing drone footage of St. Elora's rotting roofline alongside B-roll of search dogs in tall grass. A segment aired at 6 p.m. on WZMN 12 News, featuring Angela Summers standing beside a missing person poster. The anchor's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "We remind viewers that Kaylee is 5'3", blonde, last seen wearing black Converse shoes and a gray hoodie with a white M stitched on the back. If you have seen her, call the Wadsworth Sheriff's Department. The number is on your screen." Despite the coverage, tips were scarce. One caller, anonymous, male, claimed he saw a girl matching Kaylee's description walking down Route 4 near Miller's Lake around 4 p.m. on July 13th. Officers reviewed local security footage. Nothing. Another tip suggested Kaylee had staged her disappearance as part of a social media challenge. But her phone records showed no unusual messaging activity, no hidden profiles, and no evidence of online planning. Investigators quickly dismissed the idea. That night, campfires dotted the edges of the preserve, where volunteers had refused to leave. Locals brought food and flashlights. Angela stayed in a borrowed trailer, waking every hour to check her phone. "I keep thinking maybe she's somewhere with no signal," she whispered during a late-night interview. "Maybe she's just waiting for someone to find her." A volunteer named Rebecca, a nursing student, wrote in her journal that night, "It's like this place swallowed her whole. The air feels thick, like you're not alone, even when you are." On July 15th, the state authorized temporary floodlight towers and portable fencing around St. Elora to preserve the site. Investigators were preparing to revisit the morgue wing with the structural team's help, despite the previous safety warnings. A metal worker was scheduled to inspect the sealed entrance. No one knew yet what they would find behind that bolted door. But as night fell, no progress had been made. No new evidence, no witnesses, no signs of life. Just a girl who'd walked into history, with no footprints behind her. By day 4, the disappearance of Kaylee Summers had ignited full-scale regional media attention. What had started as a quiet missing person report now led evening broadcasts across Maine. Her photo, face tilted slightly, smiling, eyes focused beyond the lens, became unavoidable. It appeared on gas station bulletin boards, town hall doors, post office windows, and the front page of the Wadsworth Echo beneath the headline, "Girl Vanishes in Abandoned Asylum, No Trace Found." The public obsession was instant, driven by the strange setting and lack of answers. Local journalists flooded into Wadsworth, followed quickly by true crime bloggers, YouTubers, and independent podcasters. Some arrived to help. Others came chasing clicks. The sheriff's office opened a tip line, logging 119 calls in the first 12 hours. Most were dead ends, sightings in other towns, noises in woods, dreams mistaken for memories. But one tip stood out. A man named Douglas Rayner, 52, walked into the sheriff's office on July 16th at 11:09 a.m. Disheveled, carrying a stained notebook and speaking in fragmented sentences, he claimed to have seen Kaylee, inside the hospital, just after she vanished. "She was running," he told the front desk officer, "down the lower halls. She didn't see me." When asked why he hadn't come forward earlier, Rayner said he'd been scared. He said the girl wasn't alone, and that there was a man with her, a tall figure in surgical scrubs, his face not right. Deputies brought him in for formal questioning. In the interview room, Rayner elaborated. "She didn't scream, but she looked confused, like she was in a trance or drugged. And that man? I don't know. I've seen things in that building before." When asked how he got inside, given that the building had been sealed and patrolled, Rayner admitted to using a tunnel he'd discovered years ago, a disused steam vent beneath the service yard. The detectives took notes. Then they ran his name. Douglas Rayner had a prior arrest for trespassing at St. Elora in 2009 and a documented diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia. His testimony, while vivid, was inconsistent. The timeline didn't match, and yet parts of his story lingered. "He described areas of the building we haven't even accessed yet," one deputy said. "Either he's been there recently, or he remembers it better than we do." Investigators followed up, attempting to locate the tunnel he referenced. They found a collapsed drainage shaft near the southern utility entrance, but no viable access point. No evidence that anyone, not Rayner, not Kaylee, had used it in years. Still, the media seized the story. By the following morning, headlines read, "Witness, Kaylee, seen with strange man inside St. Elora." Angela Summers was blindsided. "No one told me about a man," she told reporters outside her motel. "I have to hear about it on the news? What is going on?" The sheriff's office issued a statement clarifying that Rayner's account was unconfirmed and potentially compromised by mental health factors. But the damage was done. speculation exploded online. One Reddit thread, titled "The Morgue Man Theory," proposed that Kaylee had been lured into a secret wing of the hospital by someone who never left. A former orderly, a squatter, a ghost. Theories ranged from criminal to supernatural, but all had one thing in common. They pointed back to the morgue, the sealed wing, the door no one could open. That same night, a YouTube channel with 2.3 million subscribers released a video titled, "16-Year-Old Vanishes in Abandoned Asylum. Live Investigation Tonight." The host and two friends entered St. Elora illegally using an old maintenance hatch. They filmed themselves walking through the West Wing with headlamps, whispering theatrically. At exactly 2:41 a.m., the video captures something, a door creaking in the distance. They flee. The next morning, the sheriff's department received a call from the building's security contractor. The main padlock had been cut. Entry was now officially compromised. Forensics swept the site again, but nothing was stolen. Nothing damaged. Still no trace of Kaylee. The volunteers were thinning out now. The initial momentum had slowed. A week had passed. People were beginning to lose hope. One of Kaylee's classmates, Jordan Fields, made a plea on social media. "If you think this is a game or a story, it's not. She's real. She's my friend. If you know something, say something. Don't let the internet bury her." But the noise was deafening. Between psychics offering theories, fame-hungry tipsters, and opportunistic thrill-seekers, the real clues were being drowned out. And behind all of it, the morgue door remained sealed. Call to action. Comment "truth" if you'd ignore the noise and keep searching. By late August 2012, just 6 weeks after Kaylee Summers vanished inside St. Elora Psychiatric Hospital, the investigation began to lose momentum. With no physical evidence beyond a shoe print, a bracelet, and an unusable phone, and with no confirmed sightings or communication from Kaylee, the sheriff's office began transitioning the case from active search to open missing person file. For her family, it wasn't just a shift in language. It was the beginning of something worse than grief. Uncertainty with no end. Detectives held one final press conference before stepping back. Sheriff Don Latham appeared visibly aged, his tone subdued. "We've exhausted all available search options within the property," he said. "Our team has combed through 200 hours of footage, 15 square miles of terrain, and every recorded structure blueprint available. At this point, we are not ruling anything out, but we no longer have actionable leads." Angela Summers was not informed of this decision ahead of time. She watched the announcement from her couch, hands folded tightly in her lap. "She's still out there," she said quietly to the reporter who visited later that day. "If she were gone, I'd feel it. A mother would feel it." The community rallied around her. A billboard was erected along Route 16 showing Kaylee's face with the words, "Missing. Kaylee Summers. Don't forget her." Underneath it, the phone number for the sheriff's department. Local volunteers maintained a weekly walk of the grounds every Saturday. They called it Kaylee's Watch. For the first few months, as many as 30 people would show up. But as the cold began to set in, the numbers dwindled. Leaves fell. Snow came early. On January 4, 2013, the Sheriff's Department officially placed the case in long-term missing status. Evidence was boxed and labeled at the Wadsworth Evidence Lockup under file NONR KS 1212. Box 1, one cracked iPhone, black, model A1387, one silver bracelet, uninscribed, chain of custody log showing no new submissions since August 17th. Box 2 contained only printouts. Aerial maps, old hospital schematics, interview transcripts. One internal note, paper-clipped to the top. Morgue wing remains sealed. Structural clearance denied. Awaiting demolition clearance, 2025. No evidence of breach. Over the next 5 years, the only official updates were on the anniversaries. Each year, Angela stood beside the same faded poster, the same microphone, repeating the same words. She was 16. She was just exploring, and she never came back out. If that happened to your daughter, would you stop looking? By 2017, the media had moved on, but online, Kaylee's case had taken on a life of its own. Reddit threads resurfaced every few months. Theories piled up. She'd been abducted by a former employee hiding inside. She'd fallen into an uncharted tunnel and been buried alive. The morgue held more than bodies. It held secrets the state wanted buried. Angela began posting daily messages on a Facebook page called Find Kaylee Summers. In one post, dated July 12, 2019, the 7-year mark, she wrote, "If you're out there, Kaylee, I will never stop. I will never stop walking through that place until it falls to dust." And she meant it. Every month she returned to the grounds, alone, flashlight in one hand, keys to a now-dented SUV in the other. One night in 2020, she trespassed through a gap in the fence and reached the sealed morgue door herself. The outer layer was rusted now, flaking at the bolts. She placed her palm flat against the steel. "I don't know what's behind you," she whispered, "but I know she went in, and someday I'm going to open you." No one responded. No one ever had. But the silence wasn't the same. It felt watched. By 2022, 10 years had passed since Kaylee Summers vanished inside St. Elora. The building still stood, rusted and half-swallowed by vines, its demolition repeatedly delayed by zoning disputes and asbestos reports. Locals called it cursed. Teens dared each other to approach it, but no one stayed long. The case had become folklore. For most, it was a story, an unsolved mystery filed away in memory. But for Angela Summers, it never stopped being real. She still visited the hospital grounds every month, still left fresh flyers pinned to the trees and nailed to old door frames. In April of that year, the Wadsworth Sheriff's Office quietly assigned a new detective to review all cold cases under age 18. His name was Mark Delano. He was 34, meticulous, and unconnected to the original investigation. His task? Digitize and re-examine the files with modern tools. Her box was thicker than the others, he later said. Something about it didn't sit right, like it had all the right pieces, just none of them connected. Delano requested access to previously unprocessed hospital records stored in the Wadsworth Historical Archives. Most were moldy, unsorted, uncatalogued, but buried inside one envelope from 1999 was a list of voluntary patients transferred in just before the hospital's closure. There was no patient 23, no record of anyone matching Kaylee's age, description, or initials. But Delano noticed something else. The morgue wing had undergone a routine locking inspection in June 2012, just 1 month before Kaylee's visit. Performed by who? No name was listed, just a signed log. Wing sealed, access denied, restricted. Delano filed a new request for entry into the morgue, citing changes in cold case protocol. It was denied. The building, he was told, was still unsafe, but he didn't stop. Instead, he submitted a request to the Department of Public Records for employee rosters from St. Elora's final year. He got them. One name stood out: Thomas Alvey, Morgue Tech, last logged shift, June 28, 1999. No forwarding address, no employment record after that date, no obituary, nothing. And yet, someone had signed that log in 2012. In 2023, Detective Delano brought in a private firm, Arclight Geosystems, to scan St. Elora using LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar. He bypassed local channels. Too many delays. The scans revealed something no blueprint ever showed: a hidden chamber beneath the morgue wing, 8 feet wide, 12 feet deep, man-made, sealed off. A second anomaly appeared inside the wall near the surgical annex, flat metal density, door-sized. On April 12th, a drill team broke into the back wall of the morgue. Behind it, they found an old steel panel, no knob, no hinges, painted in faded red, restricted. Using a small inspection camera, they pushed through a borehole. The feed showed a dusty floor, then something silver, a necklace, simple chain, a bent letter, K. Angela Summers confirmed it. It's hers. I'd know it anywhere. Next to it lay a folder. Patient 23, voluntary. And then the camera caught it. One morgue drawer, different from the rest. Scratched, welded shut from the inside. For the first time in 11 years, they had something real. May the 2nd, 2023. At 9:14 a.m., for the first time in over 2 decades, a sealed wing of St. Elora Psychiatric Hospital was opened. A tactical entry team, along with forensic analysts and a structural engineer, breached the reinforced rear wall of the morgue chamber, previously hidden behind layers of concrete and bricked storage. Inside, dry air, silence, dust that hadn't moved in years. There were 13 morgue drawers, each one rusted shut, labeled with faded numbers, except drawer 23. This drawer stood out. Its seams had been welded from the inside, with visible scratches around the inner lip. Someone had once tried to push it open. Technicians used an oscillating saw to slice the welds. At exactly 10:42 a.m., the drawer gave way. Inside, placed carefully and undisturbed, a silver necklace with a bent letter K, a partially intact intake form labeled Patient 23 Voluntary. No remains. The form was dated July 12, 2012, 6:53 p.m., matching the exact minute Kaylee was reported missing. The handwriting was faint, but legible. The initials TA were signed under attending staff. No fingerprints, no modern ink. Forensics confirmed the necklace belonged to Kaylee Summers. Serial number and custom engraving matched the original purchase Angela made for her daughter's 14th birthday. It was all real. But the drawer didn't end the mystery. It deepened it. Lab analysis of the air inside revealed no biological residue, no evidence a human body had ever decomposed inside it. The drawer was clean, yet sealed, and underneath the intake form, one final message had been written in thick black ink. She asked for it. The press conference that followed was brief. Sheriff Latham, older now, gray at the temples, stood at the podium with Detective Delano. "She was here," Delano said. "She didn't just disappear. Something was done to keep her hidden." A reporter asked, "Was Kaylee alive when placed in the drawer?" He didn't answer directly, just looked down and said, "She was still Kaylee." Angela Summers visited the site later that week. The doorway to the morgue chamber had already been resealed, this time by police order. She stood outside the hospital's western wing, holding the necklace in her palm. "She didn't run," she whispered. "She trusted someone, and they filed her away like a case they didn't want to explain." The case was officially reclassified as criminal interference with a missing person investigation. For now, no arrests, no suspects. The man listed as staff, Thomas Alvey, remains a ghost in the records. No current trace, no death certificate. But the silence was broken. Kaylee Summers was not a rumor. She didn't vanish into thin air. She walked into a place designed to erase people and left behind the one thing it couldn't bury: evidence. The hospital is now scheduled for demolition in 2025. But one drawer, drawer 23, was saved, preserved as evidence. A sealed reminder that even the coldest places can still speak, if someone keeps asking. Call to action. Comment. Truth never dies, if you believe silence should never win.